Today I want to take a few minutes and look at the biggest barriers to developing an inclusive program in a private school. Now, the first one is attitudes. Now, the attitudes of people within the school community can really present major problems for an administrator who wants to develop an inclusive program. That can be the attitudes of the parents, the attitudes of your faculty and staff. Again, people who have never really encountered a student with disabilities are often fearful of what it might mean to the institution. Now, the second biggest barrier is the physical. People often say, well, we don't have the space, we don't have the ramps, we don't have the sound system, we don't have the visual aids, we don't have the ability to have a raised desk for a student in a wheelchair. So we come up with all of these excuses saying, oh no, the physical, we can't do it because our campus is such that those students couldn't be accommodated. If you're in an elementary school, that might be our playgrounds are not equipped for students with disabilities. Our gymnasium, we don't have anything. So again, you have all of these physical barriers that people talk about. The next one is curriculum. Oh, those students need a special curriculum. We can't possibly provide that. That's something I've heard over the years. People say our curriculum is such, we have a very challenging curriculum, and as a result, we can't really accommodate those people. And then sometimes, and this is the worst case, where I've seen people say, well, we'll go ahead and have a program for students with disabilities, and what we'll do is simply just downgrade the curriculum. We're not really going to teach them much, we're just going to get them through. That's a major barrier. People don't want to change the curriculum because they said, oh, well, we have to change it. But my question to you would be, why? Does that mean that your school can't accommodate a student who has a disability? Now, if we're talking about an intellectual disability where the student is unable to comprehend, then we have to say, okay, what can we do? But if it's a matter of accommodations, a student might need more time on a test. A student might need an additional visual aid to help them. All of those things can be designed within the context of the curriculum without altering the curriculum. And it goes back to looking at your curriculum and saying, what are the key elements that we need to include? The fourth barrier is the teachers. Teachers go, I am so taxed right now. Now you're going to throw this on to my plate at this point in time? And part of it is that teachers have had, in many cases, very little interaction with students with disabilities. So we have to make sure that our teachers have the knowledge to be able to teach. There is nothing worse than simply saying we're going to have an inclusive program, include students with disabilities, and then not train the teachers to help those students. Those students might learn differently. It doesn't mean that they can't learn. It means that they learn differently. Another one is funding. This is often thrown up as we can't afford to do this. We're so tight on our budget, now we can't do this. There's no way it would drain the budget. And my question would be, all right, have you looked at outside sources? There are so many resources out there to help our schools, to provide the funding to do away with the physical barriers that might take place. You might be able to find workshops for your teachers. But you have to look at the funding. And it's like so many other things in our schools. What's the priority? If it's not a priority, of course there's not going to be any money. We find funding for so many other things. Why not for students with disabilities? The next one is expectations. The expectation is that we have to have this program and it's going to negatively impact the way people view our program because we have those kids in our school. No, I would disagree wholeheartedly. Our mission is to help students. To help students grow. To learn. We have to set the expectations. And if the expectation is, well, we really can't do this because of all these other things, we just can't make it work, then we've lowered the expectations. We have to expect that these students are going to be able to learn. And our job is to find ways to help them learn. The last barrier is the organizational. In the Catholic school system, we've talked about including students with disabilities for a number of years. Yet only in the last perhaps 5 to 10 years have schools started to have a program. But not all. And my question is why? With so many Catholic schools across the country closing, why not include students with disabilities? If we have the space, why not do it? In the discussions that you've had in this course, even over the short time that we've been together this semester, what you are finding is that some schools are now looking at doing creative things. That schools are beginning to reach out, and that these barriers that have been erected are being broken down. The walls that have separated our schools from students with disabilities, they're beginning to come down. And we're finding ways to include them. Can we do it in all cases? Perhaps not. But my question is, what inclusive program do you have in your school? What training is being provided? What marketing has been done to educate parents, alumni, about the program? What funding supports have been undertaken to provide adequate funding for the training and the physical requirements that you might need? We can always create barriers if we want to prevent a program from starting. If we want to find a way to close a program, throw up a barrier. Make it seem impossible. When we say something is impossible, then we simply throw up our hands and say, sorry, that's not who we are. My challenge to you is to say, isn't it who we are? Isn't it why we exist? Education should not be just for the wealthy. It should be for all students. It shouldn't just be for the brightest. It should be for all students. Because you never know, the student that has been pushed aside who wants a Catholic school education, a private school education, has been told, I'm sorry, you're too different. You're too different. there's not a place for you in our institution. And my question to you is, really, what can you do to make your school more inclusive?